Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Contractor Evolution. As you've probably already figured out by the title, today we're going to unpack some of our favorite reads. So these are books that have had lasting and positive effects both on the businesses and the lives of our members. Now, before we hop in, I wanted to let you know about a 10-day challenge that we've developed and we're sending out via email. So if you're a fan of the show and you run a construction or trades business, this challenge will help you systematically work through the areas of your business that we mention in this episode. You'll identify which facets of your business to work on first versus what you can wait and work on later. And you'll also receive a list of all the systems that a healthy contracting business needs to thrive. So to get started on this challenge, which I highly recommend you do, pause the episode, go to the show description where you'll find a link for the Evolved Contractor Challenge, sign up, and the first email should be waiting for you by the time you finish this episode.
You're watching Contractor Evolution, where we unpack the systems, tactics, and skills you need to take your fast-growing contracting business to the next level.
You're here to learn what it takes to scale up, work less, and increase profitability. You've come to the right place.
Stay tuned to learn what separates the new breed of contractor from the old school, and welcome to your ultimate guide on the business of contracting.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Contractor Evolution. Benji here today. So one of our mantras here is leaders are readers. And I'm going to unpack that for a sec. As a great leader, you know that you don't know everything. And more importantly, you're totally okay with that, right? You're probably actively working to shrink those knowledge gaps and timeframes by tapping into the wisdom, the experience of people that are smarter than you, right? So think about it this way. Whatever challenge you're facing right now, somebody's already solved it. And not only that, they've probably captured their learnings for you in a book that you can read or listen to while you drive. Thinking that you should have all the answers or that you need to figure them all out by yourself is insane. So today's episode is a Contractor Evolution's must-read list. I know you don't have an abundance of time to sit in a lounge chair and sip chamomile tea and leisurely work your way through a list of books, but the fact that you're listening to this podcast means you don't use your busy life as an excuse to not be constantly improving. So if you can find a spare minute or two, here is what we recommend you dive into. Now, to keep things organized, we've structured this list in a particular way. After working with thousands of contractors over the years, we have observed a pretty clear pattern. There are 6 areas in contracting businesses that we see are often under-systemized. So think of these as 6 areas that are super important, but very difficult to master. And the 6 are this. Number 1, budgeting and financial tracking. Number 2, organizational structure. Number 3 is recruiting and hiring. Number 4 is training and onboarding. Number 5, sales and marketing. And number 6 is goal setting and execution. So to help you along your own path towards excellence, we've collected our favorite books in these areas. Just a side note here, if you're watching this on YouTube, we've included timestamps along the bottom. So if you want to skip ahead to our reading list on recruiting and hiring, for example, or you just want our books on sales, you can really easily do that. But without further ado, let's hop into it. Okay, area number 1 is budgeting and financial tracking. This is one of those facets of trades and construction businesses that is very under-systemized, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Number 1, geeking out over spreadsheets, tracking every expense right down to the penny is not something you've got a bunch of time to do. Financial education and literacy is not something that's taught in trade school or on the job site. So for a lot of business owners, they have to go way out of their way to learn this stuff. I also would say bookkeepers and accountants, generally speaking, are somewhat inconsistent. Some are amazing and lots are totally average or worse. And so there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of bad habits, and this can really, really hurt you. I'm sure you've heard this analogy before, but if you don't have a clear picture as to what's going on financially in your business, it's kind of like driving a car down a windy road at night with a foggy windshield. Is very, very dangerous. You're going to get yourself into trouble. So the book that we love on this subject matter is called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Now, there's this old sort of like saying, this piece of wisdom that floats around small business. Like you hear it all the time. And it's something like this, as a small business owner, you pay yourself last. You've got your employees that need payroll. You've got taxes, you've got fixed expenses, you've got variable costs. You need to pay your suppliers, all this stuff. And then you get whatever's left over. And I think that advice has the best intentions in it, but Mike completely reverses this equation. So if you've been thinking about the finances in your business like it's sales minus expenses equals profit, you really need to read this book. Profit First will give you a system that creates a business that serves you rather than the other way around. So what that looks like is sales minus profit equals expenses. Most contractors know that keeping track of their finances is important, but realistically, they don't have the time, the skill sets, or the infrastructure they need to do this as well as they should. And this book will show you how to set up your financials in a way that automates profit and pays you before everything else. Area number 2 is organizational structure. Organizational structure refers to a pretty simple idea that's actually very complex to implement. So what this is talking about is who does what within your business and how does all of that get communicated. A business is by nature very multidisciplinary. You have a lot of different people who are good at different things, doing different activities each day, and they need to do it in a coordinated fashion for your company to be successful. Right. And that's a very difficult thing to quarterback as a business owner. And so we have 2 books that we really, really love because they address this point head on. So the first you may have heard of is called Traction by Gino Wickman. It's really, really popular among contractors right now. It seems to come up in meetings all the time. Most of our members have read it and refer back to it all very, very, very often. So think about it this way. It's very easy to forget that employees need more structure than entrepreneurs, right? Your people need lanes to stay within. They need defined roles. They need set deliverables and accountabilities. These need to be written down and communicated effectively. Then that needs to be reinforced through rhythmical meetings and structured check-ins. So if it feels like everyone on your team does a little bit of everything, or another way you'll hear this phrased is people are wearing a lot of hats. People are wearing too many hats. And this is causing confusion or conflict or major inefficiency within your business. You need to slow down and seriously rethink your organizational structure. This can be a very daunting task, but Traction, this book, lays out exactly how to go about getting your team back on track, feeling like they have momentum and moving towards a predetermined goal. Book number 2, this is a classic. Probably a lot of you have heard of it. Perhaps you've read it already, but it's worth a reread. It's The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. If you find yourself working 40 plus hours a week and you're getting drained, you own a job, not a business. And this is what Michael Gerber refers to as being the technician or a manager in the book. In order to step out of the day-to-day, you need to become a true entrepreneur and leave that technician role behind. The E-Myth addresses the myth that small business owners think they are entrepreneurs when in fact they are not. So this book is going to show you how to become an entrepreneur or someone who focuses on closing the gap between where your business is and where it is going to be in the future. Okay, area number 3 that we see contractors really struggle with within their businesses is recruiting and hiring. If you've owned a company for any time at all, you know that finding A players is extremely difficult. Holding on to them is even harder. And you probably know how challenging running a business without them can be. So we've got 2 books that address this specific issue. So there's a book called Who by Jeff Smart and Randy Street. You run a human-driven business, and until like AI totally takes over and we've got like home building robots, you're going to run a human-driven business for a while yet. Because of a roaring economy, labor shortages, and a whole host of other reasons, hiring is harder right now than it's ever been before. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. So Who outlines the true cost of hiring mistakes, and probably won't surprise you, it's more expensive than you think. They talk about how looking for someone who is a culture fit is often more important than education or skills. And they talk about why if you want to make top tier hiring decisions, you need to implement a top tier interviewing system. This is a very, very solid read on all things recruiting and hiring. I highly recommend it. The second book that we have in this category is called The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. Simply put, a lot of people aren't team players. They may be skilled, they may be experienced, they might be capable, but if their ego won't let them row in the same direction as the rest of your team, you have a serious problem. So Patrick says the ideal team player is three things. They're hungry, humble, and smart. And he details how to accurately assess this in individuals you are considering adding to your team. Okay, area number 4 is training and onboarding. If you're anything like me, you find this very, very challenging. Teaching people new things takes longer than you think. Expressing ideas is more difficult than you think. You want people to learn stuff right away and you're frustrated when they don't. This is for sure a sore spot for a lot of business owners. We've got 2 books that we think are awesome when it comes to training and onboarding. So the first is called Work the System by Sam Carpenter. Work the System will fundamentally change the way you view the world by showing you the systems all around you and giving you the guiding principles to influence the right ones that make your business successful. So it's all about basic checklists all the way to more complex standard operating procedures. If you feel that a lot of your day is spent just managing chaos, then this book is going to show you how to stop the chaos before it ever happens in the first place. And I think once you see the world through systems, you'll be able to involve your team to create a workspace that delivers controlled results. So that's the first one, Work the System. The second is called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. So this is one of my all-time favorite books for a whole bunch of reasons. Made to Stick breaks down how to make your ideas sticky, as they say, or another way to think of that is like how to make your ideas really memorable. So if you've ever felt like infuriated because your explanation of how things ought to be done within your business are met with blank stares, then Made to Stick is for you. So if you've ever been standing on a job site showing how to paint a certain kind of siding or use a certain piece of equipment or install something. If you're showing people how to do things and they're just not getting it, your ideas aren't making their way into that person's brain, this is a must read. Speaking in a way that is memorable to your audience is a universal skill set. So while I'm saying it's going to make your training sessions 10 times better, being a more memorable communicator will impact a whole bunch of other stuff in your business as well. So Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. Okay, area number 5 is sales and marketing. We've got 2 books. The first is called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. This is probably my favorite on this entire list. I read this for the first time about 18 months ago, and it has totally changed my life. This book is more of a brand and marketing book than it is a sales book, but let me tell you why I love it so much. This might sound crazy, but most companies actually really suck at explaining who they are and what they do for their customers. I'm going to say that again. Most companies really suck at explaining who they are and what they do for their customers, which is bizarre. You would think, if anything, you should be good at just breaking down in simple terms what it is you do so that people will listen. But this is a huge, huge breakdown in the way most companies communicate with their audience. And this causes confusion, which hurts your ability to build trust, to market your brand, and to sell. Now, as a best-selling author, that's what Donald Miller did before this book, is he wrote a whole bunch of best-selling novels. He believes in the power of story, and he says that the best way to communicate your brand promise is by telling your customers a story which places them as the hero and then your business as their guide. This book is super easy. It's very fun to read. I think I finished it in a couple days max. But the framework he explains will dramatically improve how you communicate with your customers. My sales team and I have implemented this framework into our sales process, and we've seen massive improvements in almost every metric we track. So if you want to communicate a better brand story, read Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Okay, book number 2 for sales and marketing is called Influence by Robert Cialdini. Influence is about the 6 principles of persuasion, and it's really useful for sales, useful for marketing. You could use it in negotiations. Professor Robert Cialdini says certain triggers can influence human decisions almost automatically. And the 6 are reciprocity, consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity. You'll have to read the book to find out more about those 6. But what he says is that by using these examples, you'll be able to recreate your client journey as they are introduced to your company. And you'll understand that everything from what you wear to the pen you hand your client influences the sale. It's really simple to implement. And if you do put these 6 ethical principles into place, I promise you will see your sales ratio soar. Okay, area number 6 where things are under-systemized is goal setting and execution. Running a business is chaotic. Life is distracting. It can be very, very easy for entrepreneurs to get veered off course. And there's one book that we absolutely love that addresses this. It's probably the most popular one on the list. It's called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. This is a Contractor Evolution favorite. We're such Jocko fans, in fact, that we even had him speak at our winter summit, and he blew us away. So Jocko distills his lengthy career as a Navy SEAL commander into 12 principles that couldn't be more relevant to the busy lives of contractors. His lessons like prioritize and execute, decentralize command, and check your ego will help you block out the noise and focus on what matters most and lead your team out of chaos and into order. This is a must read. So I hope you like that list. That should give you some stuff to chew on. If you can find a spare minute, a spare hour to read this, you can download all this stuff as audiobooks. We would highly recommend it, and your business will thank you. Hey, if you enjoyed this show, hit that subscribe button. It's what allows us to produce more awesome content for you, totally for free.